Welcome with us, General Consul. I'm really happy that you agreed to speak with us, with me.
It's always
because
a pleasure.
this is a particular important topic in my mind for me personally, and I know that many people feel probably the same way. Today, I'd like to discuss with you repatriation of particularly important artifacts. Okay, they are historically known here in the United States as the Elgin marbles. For reasons that we'll come to, that name has been very controversial, is controversial. How would you like us to refer to?
Okay, first, dear Delia, let me start by saying good evening to all the art lovers who have joined us. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much for providing the opportunity to explain a quite controversial and thorny issue. Congratulations for the excellent event. Now I'm buckling up and I'm ready to answer to your questions. I know that this is quite a thorny issue, so sometimes we have to start by specializing the terminology. They say that the devil is in the details. So you mentioned Elgin marbles. So let's start by the word marbles. Yes. I find that this is a quite simplistic term that does not reflect the artistic beauty and the cultural significance of these artifacts. So it would be preferable to use the word sculptures. Now, when it comes to the name Elgin, usually when it comes to works of art, they're named after their creators. They're named after maybe the place where they were discovered, or they may be named by a benefactor who ordered them. At least someone, something, or some place that played a constructive role in their creation or in their evolution. I don't feel that Lord Elgin, in the case of the sculptures, played any constructive role at all, and I'm trying to be very diplomatic here. So one last thing, in order to recapitulate right now, I would like to say that instead of Elgin marbles, we call it the Parthenon sculptures. That's the term that we use. And another observation regarding terminology, when we can use the word return or repatriation when it comes to the process of getting the marbles back to Greece, but given that it's about a monument that was meant to be admired in its entirety, and I'm talking about the Parthenon Temple, we feel that the marbles, half of them are located in the British Museum right now on display. Half of them, a bit less than half of them, remains in Athens. I think that it's an issue of reunification. So we're talking about the reunification of the Parthenon sculptures.
Great. So sculpture, Parthenon sculptures and the reunification of these amazing artifacts. So probably many of you have know by now about these phenomenal sculptures, but for those of us in the room that don't know can you tell us a little bit about what they are, what do they depict,
Yes, of course. I'll give you a brief description. These are a collection of sculptures that were decorating the Parthenon Temple. The Parthenon Temple was a temple built in the golden era of the Athenian democracy, about 2,500 years ago, on top of the hill of the Acropolis. These sculptures were integral part of the temple. And as such, they are an icon of classical beauty. They are a symbol of the glory of the Athenian democracy. They're a symbol of the glory of classical antiquity in ancient Greece. Now, regarding the details of these marbles, they were positioned on top of the columns of the temple. And they were parts of the frieze, parts of the metopiece, and parts of the pediment of the same temple of Parthenon. When I'm talking about the frieze, It's a very long rectangular piece of marble with carved figures. And in the case of the sculptures that are on display in the British Museum, we can see the procession of the Pan-Athenia Festival. The Pan-Athenia Festival was a festival that was taking place every 4 years in the ancient city of Athens to honor the patron deity of the city, which was Athena. And in the case of the marbles, the sculptures that we have in the British Museum, we can see riders, horses, musicians, and some Athenian civilians. Then, if we have to describe the metopiece were depicting some snapshots from Greek mythology. And in the case of this collection, it depicts some snapshots from the Sendoromachi. The Sendoromachi is a legendary battle between the people, the tribe of Lapiths, that were living somewhere in central Greece, what is today Thessaly, against the Centaurs. Centaurs were legendary creatures, half men, half horses. And then the last part are a number of statues that were decorated in the pediment of the same temple. And they were depictions of deities, such as Dionysus, such as Ilissos, or such as Iris. These are more or less the collection. These are of unique artistic beauty with tremendous detail.
It's beautiful. So these sculptures are from the Parthenon in Athens, but they are currently in the British Museum, okay, in London, right? So can you share with us, how did they get there?
It's quite a long story, but I'll give you the abridged version.
Yeah.
So it all started in the beginning of the 19th century when Greece was still under Ottoman occupation. There was this Scottish aristocrat named Thomas Bruce, 7th Earl of Elgin, in short, Lord Elgin, who was accredited as ambassador of England to the Ottoman Empire. He started in 1799 until 1804. So back in the days, the elite of Europe was obsessed with classical Greek antiquities. So Lord Elgin, when he arrived in Greece, he took a group of artists and workers who went to Athens, and their mission was to create some casts, to draw, and to take measures so that when Lord Elgin went back home in England, he could duplicate the sculptures of Parthenon. But Lord Elgin was quite a pragmatic gentleman, so he considered that it's way better to get the originals instead of creating duplicates. He took the marbles, the sculptures, out of the Parthenon temple. He boxed them and eventually transported them to England. That was quite an adventure. It lasted from 1801 until 1812 under very dubious circumstances. It almost ruined him financially, and when he eventually got back to England, he was forced to sell this collection to the British state. That happened in 1816, and 1 year later, these sculptures became a part of the collection of the British Museum, and we can still admire them there up to this day.
Quite a story. For how long has the effort, you said that since then Greece has been asking for their unification, but what kind of effort the Greek government has made in the past and also in recent years?
Yes, let's start from the very beginning. I mean, the reactions, not just from the Greek government, were immediate. I mean, there was the group of Philhellenes, who were the friends of Greeks, even in the UK, in England, back in the days, and they reacted immediately to the actions of Lord Elgin, particularly Lord Byron, accused him of vandalism and looting. After that, we had the two first requests of repatriation of the sculptures. 3 years after Greece became independent, we became an independent state in 1832. 1835 was the very first official request. The second one was in 1890, and both claims remained unanswered. The next chapter started during the 80s. During the 80s with a legendary actress, Melina Mercouri, who was acting as a Minister of Culture back then. She was very passionate about the Greek cause and the repatriation of the sculptures of Parthenon. So she submitted for the very first time an official request of return of the marbles to the British authorities. After that, the next chapter was in 2009. That was a game-changing year because we had the inauguration of the Acropolis Museum. It gave some fresh impetus to the arguments of Greece, and eventually right now we have started discussions, negotiations, they're ongoing. They started by the end of 2022, and we remain cautiously optimistic.
Very interesting story. So do you think that it's this back and forth, right, that has been going on between Greece and United Kingdom, do you think that it's strictly a matter between the two governments, or do you think that the British Museum has something to say?
The simple question is that right now, if we want to understand who our interlocutor is per se, it is the British Museum. But at the same time, whenever there are senior official meetings, whether with the opposition or the government in the UK, this question remains in the agenda.
But actually, the UK, has a law on the books that prohibits them to allow reunification of the sculptures, right? So there is a lot of resistance still from their part. As a matter of fact, this leads me to my next question. As recently as last November, Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister, canceled the meeting with your boss, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, over this issue, right? What was that all about?
Okay, I'll start with the second question. First, we have excellent relations with the UK, no matter what, but there is this thorny issue. It's a long-standing issue, we need to resolve it. That was, I consider, a disappointment, and we hope that we can leave it behind as an isolated incident. We think that was a failure for diplomacy. The purported reason was because our Prime Minister, Mr. Mitsotakis, reiterated our claim on the British television. We believe that no matter what happens, even if we disagree, the channels of communications have to remain open. We believe that we should approach this issue in good faith, try to exchange some novel, creative ideas so that we can find a working arrangement that will be good for everyone. It will be fantastic for us to find a solution, obviously, but it will also be a magnificent gesture of public diplomacy for the British side as well. Now, regarding the law, yes, that's correct. There is the British Museum Act of 1963, which in a nutshell prohibits the repatriation of the exhibits of the museum. But the sculptures are carved in stone, the laws are not. So we feel that things change. We feel that things change, and they change very fast. We were talking about AI and so many novel developments. Wherever there's will, there is a way. We're committed in this process. We will insist in good faith, and we feel that we can find a way within the existing legal framework that will work for everyone. And I feel that if we get to the point where there is a mutually acceptable solution, this law will not be an obstacle.
Yeah, I understand that very well, and I think it's quite clear, thank you. But I think that the British Culture Secretary over a year ago, at that time was Michelle Donnellan, if I recall correctly, has also said that the British government will never allow the British Museum to dismantle their collection. She said so publicly multiple times, and I think that that's pretty much been on the public opinion their stand, more or less, So what do you say to that? I mean,
Never is a very strong word.
Yeah. I mean, they were, in fairness, they were in Athens and they moved to London, so why not?
Things move very fast. Things move very fast. We are committed to constructive dialogue. We believe in the need to build trust between the two sides. And we feel that we'll do our best to approach creatively in good faith this issue, this problem. We hope that the British side will reciprocate. On top of that, we aspire to build a broader partnership with the British Museum. And we feel that a potential solution in the issue of the Parthenon sculptures could be the basis, but then there will be so many other dimensions that will add up to a great relationship. So there are so many great incentives to find a way out of that.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I really love, this is one probably of my favorite piece of the Parthenon, the battle of between, so it's really quite remarkable. One of the arguments that the British government and the British Museum also had was that they claimed that Greece simply does not have the means and the tools to care for this collection. And that takes us to your amazing Acropolis Museum, which you just mentioned. Do you agree with their point? I mean,
that was a very common argument back in the days, but as I said before, 2009, this argument stopped existing. I mean, we built this museum with the sole purpose of housing the collection of the Parthenon sculptures. It is a state-of-the-art museum that combines modern technology with world caliber experts. It is located right at the feet of the Acropolis Hill, a few meters away from the natural setting of the collection of the sculptures. Someone who goes there understands that these are very unique monuments. You can admire the collection of the marbles, the collection of the sculptures right next to Parthenon, and eventually you can really appreciate the artistic beauty and the significance of this monument for the global cultural heritage.
Yeah. From a art history perspective, the rest of Europe regards classical Greek culture as part of our patrimony. The British Museum presents the sculpture in the context of development of civilization and Western culture as a whole, right? From the ancient Egyptians and Persians, through the classical Greeks and Romans, and on into our own time. Doesn't that provide a better way of understanding the sculptures than viewing them in isolation?
First, I would like to thank you for considering the ecumenical importance of the Greek cultural heritage. Now, I will try to answer your question by reiterating the previous statement by our Prime Minister, who mentioned Mona Lisa. You know, it's very common to think that you will have Mona Lisa cut in half. You have half of it in the Louvre, half of it in the British Museum. If you're even more constructive, you can cut it to three and put some in Berlin as well. Of course, possibly you will have a lot of people admiring the portions, the different pieces. But then I would call it an artistic sacrilege or even an absurdity. So the Parthenon is not just a collection of standalone statues or exhibits. It is a monument that were meant to be admired in its entirety. So when you cut it in half, you cannot understand anything. That's what I'm feeling. That's why we're talking about the reunification, and we consider it of paramount importance.
So I don't think that the fractionalization is going to be applicable here, you know. Most certainly not. So if the sculptures are returned to Greece, which many of us hope, how should the British Museum fill that space, you know? what they should be doing with the space.
I believe that a lot of very constructive ideas have already been brought to the table. My country is blessed with a huge number of antiquities, and I'm sure that we will have no problem finding a way to retain the interesting character of the collection of the British Museum. On top of that, I mentioned that we're aspiring to build a broader partnership with this museum, so there will be even more benefits in case that we reach a potential solution.
Do you think that AI might help somehow?
We have already done quite a lot of things in Acropolis with technology. I feel that it gives us a lot of different perspectives. It provides solutions, innovative ways of reproducing the reality back in the past. But I have to say right now that for us, bringing the original sculptures close to Parthenon would be very useful, would be completing the picture, the setting, and the value of this monument. And this is something that makes a lot of museums understand that sometimes location does not matter so much these days. There are so many other things, and what really matters is the sense of unity and the sense of common heritage for everyone.
Yeah, well, we are almost run out of time, but I really wanted to ask at least this one. Do you think that the return of sculptures to Greece, obviously, could start an avalanche of, repatriations? I mean, the museums, the greatest museum of the world, like the British Museum, the Metropolitan in New York, and many others, are full with artifacts that they come from all over the world. So, do you think that, Greece might start something?
That was a common argument of the British side for years. We consider that the Parthenon sculptures are a very unique case because these are not standalone statues or artifacts. This is a totality, a monument that's supposedly admired in its entirety. So that sets it apart. The monument was mutilated and it has to be reunified. Now, there is also the official position of Greece, according to which Lord Elgin had the marbles removed from the Parthenon temple and transported to London unlawfully. I don't feel that the museums of the world, or at least the majority of the exhibits of the Museum of the World, have been acquired unlawfully. At the same time, these days, I feel that the standards and the context are changing, and practices that were tolerated back in the 19th century are not accepted anymore. And there is a growing trend these days of acceptance of the repatriation claims for exhibits of cultural importance, of cultural heritage. We've seen that time and again a few days ago with some artifacts from Ghana that were repatriated from the British Museum. We've seen that happening with a lot of other exhibits. We've seen that happening from the Museum of Vatican that returned to Greece some fragments. And I feel that this kind of gestures brings us closer. We're ready to sit constructively around the table and find a solution that will be the right thing in every different angle. I'm feeling that Greece's claim is based on history, it's based on justice, it's based on the need to preserve and protect artifacts that are considered parts of the ecumenical cultural heritage.
And I think that we'll leave it at that. So thank you so much, General Counsel, for your, for your fascinating conversation. I wish we could go on. I have several questions here, but we run out of time. So thank you again.
Thank you very much.